Jalen misses the layup at the end of regulation.
Huh.
What did you say to him, and kind of what did you guys say going into that overtime?
I ain't saying nothing to him. I just kind of laughed at him. I think we both kind of, when they called the timeout, we both just looked at each other and just kind of laughed. But after that, it was just kind of like, all right, let's go win it. I win it the hard way. But it was just like, let's go win the game. The hell is this?
What's up, Josh? Obviously, when you guys re-signed OG in the offseason and paid him his contract, a lot of people looked at what he could bring on the defensive end as his main value add. But offensively, just did you know that he was capable or had it in him to have these explosive scoring nights? And if you didn't know, when did you know that? Because I don't think that reputation preceded his arrival in New York.
With our play style, and those kind of things, obviously it highlights JB, highlights Cat. I think at times we can feature OG and Kel a little bit more. But I think I knew he always had the ability to knock down shots. Even last year, some of his mid-range, just step back, stuff like that. But I feel like he kind of took it to another level, when JB went down. And I think that's how you see that the NBA is so, situational, because he's capable of having huge scoring nights. And, sometimes his number's not called, but when his number is called, he rises to the occasion. And we're comfortable with giving him the ball and, obviously catch and shoot, but also, some isolation situation where he has a matchup, whether that's in the post, mid-post, or just at three. So I hope that was an answer to your question.
Hey, Josh.
What's up?
The muscle memory you guys get from playing all those minutes in the regular season, how much does that help you guys in this situation when obviously every team is playing that many minutes? And then also the confidence that you guys got in closing out those really close games against the Pistons and being in all these playoff battles. What does that provide you in games like last night when, you guys seemed down and out, but were able to pull it out?
Yeah. Playing that kind of minutes, in the regular season kind of puts your body in a position to be resilient. And I think everything that we do from training camp to, to the first 40, 30, 50 games of the season is to make sure we're ready and prepared mentally and physically for the end of the season. And I think that's part of it. Also, I think part of that is Tibs having PTSD at the end of some games. But so there's that. So I think, our bodies are used to it in a good way. And then when it comes to, these late game situations, I think we all have the confidence in each other, and that grows over time. Obviously, the end of the season was huge for us. The Detroit series, everything was a close game, really. And even some games where we had fights with, even Boston, where we were down big and came back, and it was just a play here or there that could have swung the game in a different direction. But we got confidence in all those guys. Cat's been to the conference finals. OG's been got a finals. JB, Kel, with them, for years, even at Nova, man. I know the way that they play and they show up in big moments.
Josh, a lot of people might chalk up the Celtics performance last night to a good team with a cold shooting night, but you guys did switch more than you guys had all season. And with that comes, I assume, a level of pride in guarding the ball. In the moment, watching the film, how did you feel like everybody did in taking pride and making sure that they stayed in front of their man? And how big was that making the Celtics uncomfortable too?
Yeah, it was huge. Obviously switching, trying to take away some, some of their threes and catch and shoot, pick and pop threes. And, making sure when we do switch that that guy's not on the island, that, he has, 2-3 guys behind him ready to help, ready to step up, and just make it, difficult for them. So it was good for us to go out there and execute defensively to the game plan. And we know we're going to have to be even more locked in, next game, and, try to limit their threes. I know, they're a great shooting team. A lot of the shots that they shot, they're comfortable with. Even on the mismatches, on some of the switches on the perimeter, those guys are comfortable, shooting the ball, off the dribble and from deep. So, we got to make sure we continue to guard our yard and to have each other's back. Juan Mallory. You're lucky I can't kick you.
Hey, Josh. When you guys were down a lot yesterday, it looked like you were almost playing angry, like a couple of the rebounds you grabbed and stuff, real tough rebounds. I'm wondering, in that kind of time when things are going wrong for you guys, are you playing angry, or are you trying to get your team up?
Yeah, I was playing angry. I saw Christian's tweet that the game was over when we got down 20. So I was kind of mad about and frustrated at that one. So, but no, I mean, I think, for me, it's always, how can I find a way to spark this team? Whether that's, knocking down a shot, making a defensive play, a rebound, pushing in transition, getting offensive rebound for an extra shot. That's just kind of what I'm trying to find throughout the game, especially when you go down by double digits. So you go down by 20. You just try to find something to spark that team, and that's my job. Just kind of run around like a madman and inspire these guys and get them going. And I just try to find plays where that can happen. Obviously, it's a little bit easier when you're down 20 to find those plays, because they're all over the place. But yeah, that's just kind of my role, and I just embrace that.
Barbara.
Hi.
There you go.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Josh. Who knew Christian would be the MVP? That's kind of interesting. But I'm going to ask you about Tibs. He took a lot of heat in the last series. He helped put together a good defensive plan for you guys. Obviously, you're the ones winning on the floor, but kind of the role he played when you guys were able to stay together, and the fact that he plays you all those minutes. Oh, no.
Yeah, Christian. MVP.
Pardon?
MVP, Christian.
Very good, Christian.
Yeah, Christian. What was the question, Barbara?
Okay. All right. Just Tibbs took so much criticism in the last series, and he put together a pretty good defensive plan with you guys switching. And I know it was you guys on the floor, but just kind of his role in the fact that he prepares you for so much and how that readied you for this kind of game.
Yeah, I think that's you give him credit because it shows a willingness to adapt and a willingness to change. And one thing about him, he works extremely hard. He's going to make sure that we're prepared, that we have a good game plan, and then we got to go out there and execute it. And obviously, during the course of the game, there's always tweaks needed or X and O's that you need to do, but his ability to make sure that we were prepared and then to adjust on the fly in certain situations was huge for us yesterday. So you got to give him a huge amount of credit for that. And his willingness to change and adapt a different style or a different game plan to what he's used to. Oh, you need me to start unmuting people? Jeez.
Mike, go ahead.
Hey Josh, the spin around here has been that they didn't play near their best. A lot of things went wrong for them, shooting, Porzingis, all that. They still only lost by 3. Would you counter that you guys didn't exactly play a perfect game either, and yet you managed to take advantage of the opportunity, and that you could obviously play a lot better in games to come?
I think it's twofold, right? Because I don't think we played our best basketball. I feel we got out rebounded by 10. And we gave up 24 second chance points. We gave up some easy fast break dunks that we shouldn't have. But also, when a team isn't playing well, is why are they not playing well? Is it because they're just off that day, or is it because the defense or the other team is playing well and forcing them into playing that kind of style? And so that's a twofold question. We could say the same thing in Detroit. It was 6 games that I don't think we played our best game in any one of those. But we got to give Detroit credit, because Detroit didn't allow us to play our best game. And fortunately for us, we were able to win that series with not playing our best game in any game, that whole series. So, obviously they had some shots and, that they, didn't make, that they, that's makeable shots for them. But I feel like, we executed our game plan. We played with physicality and energy. We flew around, and we had times and areas where we were disruptive.
2 more.
There's 2 more hands. Come on, Mallory.
Hey, Josh. Regarding the switching, Cat specifically was switching way more than really any other game that I can recall all season. I know you were with him on a couple of those switches. I know you'll switch a lot. OG will switch a lot. Mikhail will switch a lot, especially when the 3 of you guys are guarding screen stuff together. When you're switching with Cat, is that something that feels new to you, or is that something that, even though you guys aren't doing it as much during the regular season, is that stuff that you're discussing during the season?
It's a little bit of both. I think he's had, highs and lows with his switching. He had the one great possession that just offhand comes to mind on the Trae Young, the shot clock violation, that he had played great defense. He moved those size 20s, and he was able to get us a stop. And we're comfortable with switching and putting him on those guards, and he has the length to contest their shots, and we're all behind him with help if he needs it, and we're ready to fly around. But it's something that obviously that was like our one of I don't know if our first a few games where we switched, and we were comfortable with it. I think we played well, and I think he defended well. I think he could have did a little bit better with his stance and those kind of things, but it was, all in all, it was a success, and he did a good job for us.
What up, Josh?
There he is, the man of the hour.
He's still in shambles right now because of that tweet. But on a different note, Mitch, obviously his impact yesterday, there was a portion of the season where we weren't even sure if he was going to still be on the team because he was injured, and you guys obviously needed a center, and now at this point the Celtics fouling him to get him off the court. Just can you talk about his impact, and on top of his impact, just do you have any advice, or do you talk to him about hitting those free throws, because obviously he shot 3 of 10 or whatever it was?
I don't really have any advice for him. Just go. I was 3 for 6. I don't think I can give him too much advice. Mine was broke too. But we have all the trust and the faith in him. I think he missed 7 free throws. I think he only played like 21 minutes, and I think he was like a plus 11, plus 13, something like that. So it shows his impact, even if he's not making free throws, even if they're doing hack and Mitch or whatever you want to call it, he was still dominant for us when he was on the court. So it's something that is, if they want to do that, that's fine. And on the other side, that causes some of those guys to pick up fouls, and now we can be a little bit more aggressive because they're fouling or they're in the bonus or stuff like that, and it could end up catching up with them in the second half or towards the end of the game. So we got all the confidence and trust in him. He's shown that he can knock down free throws for us, but everything that he does, his presence, his ability to switch, protect the paint, offensive rebound, get us extra shots, it's huge for us, and it's part of the reason why we won yesterday.